everyone. My name is Liz Harrington, and I am a clinical hypnotherapist.
Hi, and I am Courtney Clark. I'm a Theta Healing practitioner and a health coach.
And we're super excited that you're here with us today. And we're excited to share with you a little bit about our background. We both started as health coaches at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and now have moved into alternative healing modalities. And we want to chat today about why we shifted from traditional health coaching to these alternative healing modalities, what they're all about, why accessing the subconscious is so incredibly effective. And then we'll go into a little bit of Q&A around how to find your most aligned practitioner, what your daily routines might look like, and some really interesting topics around past lives and the history of both these modalities. So I think we'll start with just health coaching, right? I think there's probably a lot of health coaches that are listening to this call too. I think a lot of us both have health coaches in our audience and also as friends. And so, yeah, let's maybe start there. Courtney, tell us, how did you get into health coaching? Like, what was your background and story about how you found IIN and found yourself in that field?
Yeah, definitely. So I had come from a very traditional, conventional healthcare background. I was actually studying pharmacy, and I had really gotten familiarized with pharmaceutical medications and conventional treatments for illnesses and issues coming up. And I started to realize that I really, even though I'd been in school for years, I didn't really have the tools I needed to take care of myself physically and mentally. I was very stressed. I was experiencing burnout. I didn't feel like I knew how to nourish my body that well with my diet. And so I got really interested in that. I was like, if I'm going to be able to help anyone else, I gotta figure out how do I help myself, and that's not going to be in this conventional medical field right now. And so I found the Institute for Integrative Nutrition from a friend that I knew from a health food store. And she had been going through the program, and she was really loving all the information and material that it was touching on different diets and things. And she really just brought up how it gave you so much exposure to things, and it was just so interesting related to health. And so I signed up for the program to do a year-long program, and within the first few months, they had encouraged us to get accountability buddies where we could check in with each other to see how we were going through the modules, and that we were getting the most out of the experience. And so that is how Liz and I connected, was actually through this same program. And it's funny because I remember being on Facebook, on the Facebook group, and they were like, yeah, just like reach out, you can make a post about it. And I made a post, and Liz was one of the people that had responded back to me. And I was in Maui, Hawaii at the time, which I'm still living here, and she was over in New York City. And I was like, oh, this could be really interesting to have just such different perspectives, but be going through the same program. And so that's how the universe kind of brought us together.
Yeah, it's so funny because I have such a vivid memory of like scrolling through Facebook and having this intention of like, I want to find this accountability partner. And I think you had posted like several days ago, and I realized like there was some other women that had posted too and commented on your post. And I was like, oh, like this girl looks so cool. She lives in Hawaii, like so this organic farm, like a ton of other people have already commented, like she's probably found someone. But I was like, if it's meant to be, it's going to be meant to be. And I remember being so excited that you had reached out to me. And yeah, I feel like it was an instant connection between the two of us, in spite of like being from such different worlds and even having like, I think, different intentions going into the program too. Like for me, I feel like it was twofold, where I had grown up being very obsessed with body image, weight, like always on diets, like always trying to lose weight in spite of like being at a very healthy weight. It was just like, like one of those things that I think a lot of women go through, right? Like questioning their physical appearance and thinking, all right, if I lose another 5 pounds, like I'm finally going to be happy. And so I think I was on this quest of like understanding, like, okay, like what kind of diets are going to make me feel the best and like physically look the best. And that had been my journey for, at that point, probably around like maybe like 15 years or so. And then in tandem with that, I was going through some different gut issues at the time and just could not get to the bottom of it. Like literally tried all the conventional techniques, have been to so many different doctors, had so many different procedures. And like, they were basically like, this is all in your head. Like, you don't even like have gut issues. And so I remember just being like, okay, well, like I'm experiencing symptoms but still like no diet was, alleviating my symptoms, and similar to the weight, right? Like no diet was really alleviating my, how I wanted to appear physically either. Like nothing was really working. So I was really interested in this idea of health and wellness. And I just did so much research at the time, and I had so much information. And so part of the program, I think for me, was getting more information, then also realizing like I have all this information and I think I can really support other people in this space. Granted at the time, like I had a lot of work to do with myself, I think, before I was really ready to be able to support people in that space. But right, that's, I guess, all part of the journey of being a coach and just educating yourself in a realm like that.
Yeah, totally. And I remember once we did get into the program, and they had told us, halfway through, you'll be able to start taking on clients and everything. I remember having that same feeling of like, wow, I've got a long way to go. But something that they kept encouraging was, even as you're on your journey, you're able to support others on theirs too, because it's really a never ending journey to be dedicated to your health and wellness. And I feel like that really taught me that this is a lifestyle. It was really a lifestyle shift. And I feel like that has been such a reward of getting to coach people, and now holding space in a different way is, wow, it's about a lifestyle shift, and it's not seeing it as like a diet fad or just going to the gym for a little while to lose those few pounds. It's like, wow, it's about so much more than that, and it's so much deeper. And I loved how they continued to ingrain into us holistic health, and that it's not just physical, but it's also mental, it's emotional, and it's spiritual, how that all encompasses the health. So I could see with both of us over the course of the program how we got this, I'd say, healthier perspective on how to take care of ourselves and our bodies.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like that idea of holistic health, like, even though I knew that going into the program, that was their philosophy, like it didn't really resonate. And I didn't really have a full understanding of it until quite a bit later into the program, when I remember like you were working on adrenal fatigue primarily at the time, right? And I was really focused on my gut issues. And I think it was actually it was a couple months before I graduated that I launched my website to be an official health coach. And literally the day after I launched my website, my gut symptoms reduced by about 75%. And that was, I don't know if you remember that, but I think I told you guys, and I was like, this is the most relief that I've felt in like 2 years. And it's like, this is crazy. But what I came to was that I was like repressing like a huge part of my authenticity. And once I put this out there in the public, which was really freaking scary at the time, to like share with the world, hey, this is what I'm doing. It was like a part of me was, I just released this part of me, and I guess it was healing in that journey and with that release. And like, it's just crazy because like conceptually it's still so wild to me. And it almost seems like, as I'm saying it aloud, I'm like, how is this true? Like, how is this even possible? That it was like literally like after one day, one action, my symptoms had been alleviated so much, but it stuck. And after I continued to pursue health coaching and continue to like put myself out there in the world in a way that I had never before, like, I think also like something I'll share too is I remember very distinctly when we first started spending time together and talking, I was so terrified of putting myself out there that like I wouldn't even post like a matcha on Instagram, like literally on my story. Like that's how scared I was of being fully out there in the world. So it's just crazy that like something like that, which is really powerful and really life-changing to really put yourself out there in that way, that was the key to healing my gut issues. And now I can say like I'm 100% gut issue free. Like sure, like I still take probiotics, like still in like maintenance, but I realized in that moment how much the emotional and mental aspects of wellness are really what manifests in physical symptoms. And that was just like, whew, like it was such a revelation for me.
Yeah, same for me, especially coming from such a scientific background where it was like, here is the disease that's going on in the body, here's what's happening here, all of this, here's the treatments, the mechanism of actions, all of this. And to literally see firsthand within my own experience and see through youth, see through clients, how it can be such a mental, emotional component that is affecting it. It blew my mind as well. And I think that was probably one of the biggest benefits that I saw from going on the journey of doing the integrative nutrition program and then actually working as a health coach with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we'll go into this in a little bit, but I think that's why both of us ended up like ultimately shifting away from health, because we realized like there was like a deeper root issue that actually needed to be healed, and that health was really just the symptom. And that anything that we were doing, even when it was changing our diets, was like almost more of a band-aid, rather than actually like healing at the root cause. But I'm curious too, to like talk a little bit more too about just like coaching in general, because I think both of us like still really appreciate coaching and even like integrate coaching. And I think we also both would like to have a practice that includes coaching with these alternative modalities. But I think it'd be interesting to talk about just like the benefits of coaching and maybe like some of the limitations of coaching in and of itself. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. So I'd say some of the main benefits I saw with it, at least, in what I gained from it and the way that that I shared it with clients, is to have someone help you have a structure towards any health goals that you want to achieve. And to have someone being accountable, helping you stay accountable and meeting with you consistently, say every other week is how we would typically meet and what was recommended to us. And having that alone, just having someone to meet with and say, okay, this is how I'm going on my goals. I could see that sometimes people literally just needed someone consistently there that they could go to and feel seen, feel heard. And I remember there was like a few specific things related with coaching. And it was, to come into the space and have compassion for the person in front of you, releasing any judgment, and just being in this place of accepting and meeting them wherever they are, and how that in itself can be such a healing thing when people are used to, in their intimate relationships, maybe with family or friends or their partners, sometimes feeling more judged, or just that person that they're going to with their problems is not necessarily going to be in that place of like, all right, I'm here to be fully present with you, and well fed and well hydrated, all of this, well rested, I'm just here for you. Like, how often was that actually happening? And I realized not that often, and so such a benefit was like, wow, I get to hold space and basically when I say holding space, I'm just saying being super present and receptive to the person in front of me and what they're going through. Like, it just helped me really put those skills into practice of being a compassionate person, listening, helping a person get to answers on their own just by being there with them and talking things through and learning how to ask really good questions, and not coming from a place of like blaming anyone else, or how we would do with friends. I remember like before doing the program and then doing the program of like, wow, a lot of friendships that I have in my life were complaining and we're placing blame on someone outside of the situation, outside of the conversation. It's like, wow, this helped me just communicate better with people in general by having that framework for a session of how I'm communicating one-on-one with a client. What would you say?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I remember them giving us actually that list of high mileage questions, they called them, which was like a 25-page packet of open-ended questions you could ask a client, which was very overwhelming at the time. I thought I had to memorize all of them to be an effective coach. It turns out like in reality, though, they were a really good framework to think about like how to let somebody else find their own answers and to guide them in the process. And, it's the opposite of like asking a leading question, right? And like inserting your own beliefs into somebody else's, sphere. And so I think that was, to your point, like that was a good skill to develop within the coaching space, but then also just within relationships in general. And to your other point, I don't think a lot of people have relationships that are just like someone else holding space, asking you open-ended questions, reflecting, mirroring in a way that is like totally just like them acting as a guide and just listening actively without, again, like giving advice, like inserting your own opinion, like any of that. And so I think often like coaching, like people are like, they don't always think that it's necessary, like to hire a coach. Like I think, and this is changing, I think, but I think in the past, it's been very much like, it makes more sense to hire a therapist through insurance that I can pay like, $15 a week for, which is something that I did in the past too, without realizing that like coaching is a little bit different than therapy in the sense where I think that while coaching has that really like open-ended space and you do act as that mirror and reflection to somebody, it's, to your other point, a lot about accountability and a lot about what actions are we going to take? What do you want to do to move yourself forward? That's something I never really got in therapy. I know there's different types of therapists that maybe are more action oriented, but I found that coaching for me was more effective because it was more goal oriented. It kept me more accountable while still having that person to just bounce off of and to be that mirror for me. So I'm a big fan of coaching. And I also think there's some limitations to it. Do you want to talk about the limitations?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd say the biggest limitation that I have found with coaching is there can be times where you've set goals for yourself or the client has set goals and it's like you hit a wall and you can't move forward in some way. And I've seen with clients where they can get down about it of like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I complete this goal? These different things and just get in this weird head space about it. And what it can be is that we are talking about issues on the conscious level of like, okay, we're connecting during our session mentally, and one thing I did start to incorporate that I found really helpful was plant medicine. I'd incorporate like ceremonial cacao, and that would help us get a little more into our bodies, a little more into our hearts. So that was one thing I used to help us go deeper. But still, there was the limit that we could only go so far. And it wasn't until I started doing the work of subconscious reprogramming and getting into different brain waves and altered states of consciousness and realizing, wow, this is where so much is going on and influencing our ability to take action and make the changes we want to make. And we're not even tapping into that in the session with the person, and I think that was the biggest limit that I saw. It's like sometimes you hit walls and when you hit walls like that, now I see clearly it's because it was being influenced by something subconscious that we needed to go in and go deeper into.
Yeah. I think we're like totally on the same page. I think we both had the same challenges with clients where I think we both understood that there was something deeper. And from like a health coaching perspective, like something, for example, that I used to often run into when I would ask my clients to look at their childhood and do some analysis, like logical analysis, to think through like maybe like what in your childhood has impacted or influenced the way that you show up today. What was your first experience with the word weight? Like, what was dinner like with your family growing up? And something that's very specific that a lot of people would share with me is that they were part of what I call the clean plate club, where their parents would say, okay, you have to eat your entire dinner, all of your vegetables, all your chicken, pasta, whatever, in order to get dessert. And that often manifested as an adult of them not listening to their body and eating everything on their plate And obviously in a lot of cases overeating, which then led to weight gain. And something like that, like that's childhood conditioning and programming, that it was great that we knew that that was the limitation, that that was something that was blocking them from listening to their body. But that's kind of where I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. Like I like we can try to, rationalize our way out of this. Like, again, like consciously talking about like, the idea that you're an adult now, you can make your own decisions. When you were a child, like your parents had this authority over you, like this is no longer your reality. But just talking about something doesn't necessarily help people to actually make changes. And so that's where I was really stuck as a coach. And I saw a lot of my clients that they would do really well within the program, but then they wouldn't really make the long-term changes. Like after we stopped working together, I think a lot of them fell back into their old patterns because it was all on the subconscious level. All of that conditioning, all of that programming, like that's just one example of something that was holding them back from actually being the highest potential of themselves in the health space and beyond. And so I think interestingly, like we were both doing subconscious work while we were coaching clients. I found hypnosis originally through a program called To Be Magnetic, which is all self-hypnosis actually, and is all about subconscious reprogramming. And so I started finding like a lot of value and healing in doing this self-hypnosis work. And so I had also done hypnotherapy years ago when I was had this huge fear of doctors that was totally irrational. And that was an extremely effective modality for me to get over my fear of doctors. Like I identified the source of the issue and healed like within one session. Like it was a wild transformation. So I think I knew there was these like other potential modalities out there, but it wasn't until this year, actually, like in the beginning of this year, that I was like, okay, like I'm ready to actually pursue this modality and get certified in it so that I can incorporate it into my coaching practice. So now, like, yes, I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I do want to incorporate the coaching into my practice one day too, because I think the combination of the subconscious work with that reflection and accountability is where the magic is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it was so funny. It was about a year after I had started taking on clients, health coaching clients. I had a friend reach out, and we had done some coaching together, and she said, hey, I have this other friend that he is practicing theta healing. He'd really like to work on his health some, and I think you guys would be a really great match. He'd love to do a trade with you. So it just kind of fell into my lap, this modality. I'm like, okay, I'm interested. And he was in Glastonbury in the United Kingdom, so I thought that was intriguing too. And so I actually did a 6-month trade with this guy that was a theta healing practitioner. And so it gave me this really firsthand experience of what is this, and getting to explore it. And so we would meet every week. One of us would hold the space, and we would trade off. And it took me to this place that was just next level. Like I thought that we were really getting in some really good deep places when I was doing coaching, and I'd be able to get down to the bottom of like, oh, this is where this is coming from. But same as you, it's like we could only identify it, and we couldn't necessarily like in that session shift it. And what I realized with going into the theta brainwave state, using meditation as a part of the session, getting to still set goals, still have a focus, which I was used to with the health coaching. But with this experience, it was like, okay, what is really stopping you from being able to achieve this goal or manifest this thing, be able to be a match to attract what you're wanting to attract? And there was so many limiting beliefs and just old emotions that hadn't been processed and felt, like really having those experiences where I would cry during a session because something was coming up about my inner child, or something on the DNA ancestral level that, a great grandmother hadn't gotten to feel her grief or whatever. Now it's coming up now, and it's in my heart, and it's blocking connection with new relationships for me. And just to have exposure to this just from like no strings attached, doing this trade just to explore it, it really was something that unlocked just this whole new expanded way of looking at like who I am and who we all are, and just how much bigger we are than we realize.
Yeah, totally. And I think like too, like how much bigger the subconscious is than the conscious mind. Like that was something that was like an unlock for me when I found out that the subconscious was 90% of our brains, and is like really like, yeah, that's where all of your beliefs and patterns and habits and emotions and memories and bodily functions, like so much of all of that is stored there. And that's what's running the show. And I think a lot of us think that we're in charge. Like as I'm speaking to you right now, like I think consciously that I'm in charge, but in reality, like my subconscious is actually the one that's like doing all the talking right now, truly. And like is essentially like influencing the way that I show up and influencing all the automatic responses that I have and the way that I'm feeling right now. Right. So I realized when I realized that, I was like, okay, so if like the subconscious is 90% of our brains and is really the one that is influencing the way that we show up, like that is the only way to really make long-term meaningful change without resistance. I'm curious, like, yeah, what's been your experience with the subconscious? Like, why do you think that it's so powerful to focus in that space?
Well, I love that you use the words without resistance,
Mm.
because I remember um, coaching, and I remember going into like some business coaching, to get more training on, okay, how can I have a business where I get to be an entrepreneur and get to experience this, have an online business and have some of the benefits of that, of remote work and all of this. And yeah, I remember before starting to dive into some of the subconscious work, it was like painful. It was like pulling teeth sometimes, like the resistance that I felt to taking certain actions. And I was just like, I see outlined, the business coach is saying doing this, but why am I so resistant to it? Why do I so not want to do this? Or why am I having all this negative self-talk as I'm trying to do it? And just doing more of the subconscious work, I realized like it doesn't have to be this hard thing that we have to like be so disciplined to get the things done, where it's not even an enjoyable experience, where we're almost kind of like not being nice to ourselves, not honoring where we are in that moment and the resistance we feel. Yeah, it was much more of a like forced kind of energy that I felt like I was approaching my business and ultimately my life from
Mhm.
that place. And so to go in and clear some of that out and realize like, wow, I don't have to be motivated by fear. I don't have to be motivated by, like, I had some beliefs about being motivated into action by fear or by punishment and weird things like that, and so to clear some of that out, the ease that has come with me taking action on things that I truly care about and truly want to do, it's been very empowering and just made life a more enjoyable experience overall.
Yeah, yes. Like I feel that so deeply. I'm like, life does not have to be so hard. Like making change does not have to be so hard. And I think, we talked about, we're going to do maybe a whole other talk about this, but like for me, I really use hypnosis to improve my confidence within relationships, and shifting my attachment style to someone who definitely identified as being very anxious to someone who really identifies as being secure now. And something specifically that I felt a lot of resistance in was speaking my needs and setting boundaries and being honest with people I was dating about like my intentions, like my intention of like looking for a long-term partnership even. And I remember like my therapist saying like, here's a script, like literally all you have to do is read this script. Like tonight you're seeing this person, you need to just read the script to him. And that's all you need to do. And when I actually get to that moment, I'm like, yes, like in theory, like great, that would be great. But like one, like I'm so freaking nervous right now that I can't remember the script that I memorized earlier. And two, like, why is this so hard? Like, why can't I just like organically feel empowered enough to just state my needs because I deserve it? And so I think like that's a big shift that I've noticed, is that now I just feel like empowered to organically communicate in a way that is going to serve me. And I don't need to like memorize any scripts. Like there isn't any of that. But again, like that was when I was trying to change from a conscious level versus like going into my subconscious and doing the healing that I need to do to show up in a new way. So yes, like I feel like we could literally talk about like why we're so obsessed with subconscious all day. But I think it'd be interesting to talk about, we're obviously both like specializing in different modalities. So like me in hypnotherapy and you in theta healing, like I'd be curious for you to talk a little bit about like how theta healing works, like what it's all about, like explaining it to somebody who doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, sure. So, theta healing is a modality that was developed by a woman named Vienna Steibel, and her intention with it was to help people get into the theta brainwave state through a meditation where you connect in with the earth, where you connect in with your body, and then you go up to what's called the seventh plane. And she describes that as the frequency of pure unconditional love, of the energy that is creating worlds, like if you want to call that God, source, creator of all that is, whatever, resonates with that energy. It's basically an energy, a creative life force. And so she developed this modality that anyone can do to be able to connect with that energy and conduct healing with that energy and shift some of these beliefs or energetic blockages, unprocessed emotions, traumas, and things, be able to shift that pretty quickly and bring some of that subconscious gunk, energetic gunk to the surface to then be cleared out and released. And one of the number one things that I hear from people, and that I felt after sessions when I did that original trade with the guy, and then when I've done sessions for other people, is they'll tell me that they feel lighter and clearer afterwards. And so it's really an energy healing modality. And I think what I've really learned with this day and age, where we have all this like collective stuff, like with humanity, of we've been through some shit over the course of the thousands of years that there's been humans on the planet. And so there's stuff on the collective level, collective fears and different beliefs that are just limiting and outdated, and we're evolving every day. And so it's a part of that evolution process to clear out the old stuff. Do spring cleaning like you would do on a house or something, but doing it within your own system, physical, mental, emotional system. And so we go up, we do a meditation, and then we start to explore based on whatever the goal or the focus that the person has for that session or for that, collection of sessions, because I always recommend doing more than one session. And that came from coaching too. If you really want real change, it's consistently showing up for something and focusing on it, and truly allowing yourself to receive that support. And then on the DNA level, things that have been passed down literally through our DNA that's in our bodies, that's coming from ancestors from generations and generations back, like there's stuff stored there. And it's the belief in theta healing that there's things stored on the soul level as well, where your soul's had different experiences, not just as a human being, or on the history level where you've experienced different past lives. And so we're able to get clarity on where all these different aspects of this unprocessed stuff or traumas and whatnot, where it's coming from, and learn whatever lessons are there for us. Like, okay, how did this affect and influence how I'm showing up in my life right now? This past stuff that I'm coming in with. And then from there, getting to have a direct communication with the seventh plane, with this energy of the creator of all that is, as we refer to it, to see like, okay, from a higher perspective, getting out of my human self, getting out of like this ego, this mind where can only access so much from this one point of focus. Okay, if we're getting up out of ourselves, getting this broader perspective, what would be like the lesson here? And that in itself is so healing, because you get clear on, okay, this is what I'm here to learn with this. Now I can let go of the rest of that gauntlet that's been holding me back. I can take that lesson with me and move forward with my life and not be stuck in the, what do you call it, like stuck in the swamp or the murky stuff. Like we can let that go now. And so that's, I think that's such a beautiful thing to be able to share with other people, is that just because you went through some stuff, or your ancestors did, or whatever, like maybe some trauma or hard situations or difficult emotions, it doesn't define you. It's not who you are. Like truly, you are this spiritual being and you're having this physical human experience. And like the more that we can truly experience that and realize that the other stuff is just stuff that we're here to learn things through, I mean, it just it brings this new perspective of life and what we're doing here. So yeah, that's a little bit about kind of what theta healing has to offer for people. And I've seen amazing shifts in myself and in other people through consistently interacting with that energy and getting this broader perspective of what's possible and what you don't have to keep dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can attest to all of that because I did a session with you and I went to you specifically for generational trauma. And it is insane, like the amount that you can release in just like an hour session in theta healing. It was really, really powerful. And I think one of the parallels of hypnotherapy and theta healing is just this idea of releasing old, outdated beliefs and then reinforcing new beliefs that are empowering. I feel like, it's really just that we come from it at a different angle. Whereas like hypnotherapy, I think the two main techniques that we generally use in those spaces are, one, regression, where you essentially go back to the source of wherever this issue initially arose. Like we call it the initial injury. Generally, like if something you experienced in your childhood, you've gotten that re-injury many times out after the initial injury. But what's really interesting is going back to the initial source and doing inner child healing with that first event to start to just look at it from a different perspective, as well as giving your child what it needed at that time to feel loved, accepted, all of the things that it probably didn't get. And that's why it had that really traumatic experience that then again manifested as an adult in ways that's not serving you. And then the technique that I really like and that I always use for my clients' first session is called parts therapy, where we personify an emotion or behavior that you're exhibiting. And so, for example, a lot of people come to me because they're exhibiting people-pleasing behaviors. So essentially what we do is personify that people pleaser, and we have a conversation with it because that people pleaser lives in your subconscious. That's a part of your programming. And so exploring that people-pleasing side of you in a way where it's separate from you. Like this is just one part of you. You have lots of different parts of you, and often the parts are actually conflicting, which is why also a lot of people will say, I know that I shouldn't really be letting people cross my boundaries and saying yes to everything, but there's like a part of me that just can't help it. And so, yeah, that's like the people pleasing part versus like this other part of you, which actually is secure and has boundaries. And so it's really powerful to focus on that people pleasing part and understand what it needs. Because generally those parts, they often surface when they're trying to protect us from something. So understanding what's their purpose and helping them to transform into a new part that's going to serve us more so in our adult lives is really powerful and is really, I would say, like that's kind of like the core of hypnotherapy. And so those are really the two techniques that I use to help my clients to release beliefs that are no longer serving them and then reinforce new beliefs. And then I think the third piece that I'll mention is that hypnotherapy is a lot about suggestions too. So you might have heard about this term of suggestibility being something that impacts whether people are successful in hypnotherapy or not. I guess one thing I'll say is that a lot of people think that not everybody can be hypnotized. that's not true. Everybody can be hypnotized. Hypnosis is a really natural state. You're literally in it all the time, whether you know it or not. Like when you are driving, watching TV, like that's why advertisers can so easily plant products into our minds. We're in this hypnotic state. We're literally just soaking up all the things. But some people are more suggestible than others. And so what that means is they're just more open to new beliefs. And basically the hypnotist or hypnotherapist, AKA me, giving them suggestions of how they are going to feel, who they are, how they're going to show up. And so some people just, because, you know, they're more open to that, they do better in hypnotherapy than others who are more closed off. I do think that you can learn how to be more open to something like that. And certainly like also practicing other modalities where you get into the theta brainwave state, like meditation, for example, can also help hypnotherapy be more effective. But I really want to emphasize the idea that literally anybody can access a theta healing state. Anybody can be in hypnosis, anybody can be in trance, like anybody can be in theta healing, because it's a really, really natural state of being for us. Like it's something, like I said, that we all go through, whether we know it or we don't.
Yeah, I love that. And just the accessibility of that, of like, it's not specific, just special people or anything, you know. I think there's people that like obviously we have a passion for it because we both felt led to do more training on it, you know. Once I did my trade, and then I spent a few months just kind of exploring on my own, and then I realized, oh, I got to get training on this because it developed parts of my brain and my mind that had not been really explored before. And I got to experience more intuitive abilities and things like that start to develop. And I saw, like, it's not me specifically. This is something that we're all capable of refining and getting better and better at with practice, just like any skills that we develop, whether it's writing or, you know, art, painting, whatever. So I think that's been a really cool realization is this isn't something far outside of you, or you have to be born being a psychic or anything like that. This is actually just states that we have access to with ease.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think the practice piece is really key. And I know we only have a couple of minutes left, so maybe we actually want to end on that and share like how we have sharpened or strengthened, I guess, this muscle, right? Because it is a muscle, it is a skill that you can get better at. So what's your practice? How do you incorporate theta healing on a regular basis?
Yeah. My best way to practice, I'd say, is in the morning. Like starting my day with getting like I'll get a warm cup of water and drink some water and get some movement in, and then have a moment of just meditating and breathing with myself and going ahead and getting into the theta brainwave state through connecting with the earth, connecting with my body, and, you know, opening up my central channel, and then connecting to all the different planes and then to the seventh plane. And from there, just getting into this frequency of unconditional love and just being and allowing whatever is wanting to come up, any kind of mental static and things like that, to come up and just be witnessed. And then from there, if there's any specific clearing to do, I'll do that. I'd say that's my like go-to of daily. If there's stuff that comes up throughout the day, if I'm having a really stressful day or something, you know, I'll take a little time for myself to maybe download some unconditional love, or like clear out feelings I'm feeling, and bring in feeling downloads of more ease or calm and things like that. But I'd say first thing in the morning is like the best way for me to stay connected with that state of consciousness and stay connected with like my own ability to shift things in a positive way. Yeah. And I notice when I do that, when I kind of intentionally I'm like, all right, I'm going to start out my day this way, like my day is way better. It flows. There's so much more ease, so much less resistance to it taking that time. How about yourself?
Yeah, I agree. Like first thing in the morning, I really, really try to do it 5 days a week. I'm not always there. And like, there are some days too, where I'm just like, I just want to journal today. And I think that's totally fine. Like to not be super rigid with any modality and to be flexible and to always listen to what you need. However, I do think that with hypnotherapy specifically, it's really important to actually go to a hypnotherapist to find the root of your trauma and to not try to just explore that on your own if you've never had any experience in that space, because it can get really scary. So I really recommend going to a practitioner originally to find that source. And once you find the source, you don't need to like revisit it all the time. What you actually really need to do is just reinforce these new belief patterns. And so I use a technique called self-hypnosis, which is really only 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's very quick. And essentially all it is you use hypno affirmations. So affirmations, like you'd say in front of a mirror, like I am powerful. They're, hopefully a little bit more in-depth and unique to you than that. But you say those affirmations in your hypnotic state, which is way more powerful, right? Because you're having a conversation with the subconscious and you are literally inserting those into your subconscious mind. And then you're visualizing yourself behaving in this new way. And I think that's actually really the key with self-hypnosis. That's the most powerful part, because your brain doesn't know the difference between visualizing something that's imaginary and actually doing the thing. So the visualization piece, and you probably heard like athletes use visualization, and it's wild how much better they perform in like a sporting event than they would if they didn't visualize. So visualization has been around for a while. It's part of the self-hypnosis practice. I spend at least 3 to 4 minutes in that space. And and then you come back up. So it's not that crazy at all. I always recommend like listening to binaural beats when you're doing it, because I think it really helps to get you into the state faster. And to, of course, like do some deep breathing alongside of it, just to calm your body down. It also helps you to get into the hypnotic state without a practitioner. And helps you to get into that heightened state of awareness, because otherwise, it's very common that your thoughts are going to be all over the place. So I think just doing some of that deep breathing in the beginning and literally counting your breaths is what I have found the best way to get into that focused, meditative, hypnotic state.
Yeah, I love that you brought up kind of multiple things there with other modalities that can be helpful and supportive of it, like journaling and meditation and breath work, because I'd say those are things that make it way easier to be able to do something like theta healing or the hypnosis, because it really starts to train your awareness to just be okay with whatever comes up and not need to judge it, not need to push it away or any of that. So I love that you bring it up, because I still use all these different tools that, maybe they're not going into the subconscious as easily, but still they're super helpful in times where I need it, and where I'm not limiting myself to just one modality. And I think that was another thing that came from health coaching, doing the integrated nutrition program too, is being open to different modalities and seeing how they can be beneficial and valuable at different times in your life based on what you're needing. But like the meditation component and the breathing deeply, being able to help regulate your nervous system is going to make something like the theta healing and the hypnosis way easier to go into. And then I would definitely say starting out with working with a practitioner, which we both did, because like you said, it's powerful in the way that it can go deep down into these like shadowy realms, into more of this trauma stuff that your mind, especially when you're new to it, like your conscious mind or your ego, whatever you want to call it, is going to be defensive of that, because it's going to feel unsafe, or it's going to just feel like it can't handle it. It's overwhelming. It feels like, I'm dying or something, when it's just these aspects of it that it's so identified with are coming up to the surface. And there's that realization like, wow, this actually isn't even me. It's not even truly me. And so to have someone there that has been going in those realms already themselves, is trained in that way. It's definitely the way to go to start, is to have that sense of support and not just going in, because I feel like you could actually do some damage there within your own experience of not having that support.
You don't want to re-traumatize yourself, which like you can, and there's like I think we've both been trained in ways to ensure that a client that has experienced severe trauma doesn't re-traumatize themselves. But if you haven't been trained in that space, like it's not something you necessarily want to mess with. I think maybe like also with the last couple of minutes, we want to quickly touch on how to find a practitioner that is aligned with you.
Yeah, totally. So it's cool because we often find, even being, miles and miles apart and in different cities, we have a similar approach to things. And so I know for me, with finding modality or finding a practitioner, it really has been such a good way for me to practice being connected with myself, with my intuition, and practicing presence, the things that I've learned from journaling, the things I've learned from meditation, and being able to get into the present moment and say, like, what do I really need right now? And take that time of introspection. I don't think it's the type of thing where if you're needing some support, you just ask everyone around you for their advice all the time. I think more and more what I realize is, like, take a moment. It doesn't have to be like that long, but just take time with yourself to get clear on what's coming up for me. What do I actually need? And once you can take that time to get clear on what you need, what you're looking for, and put that out, pray or write it down, visualize it, as you bring up, visualize whatever it is, then you have an intention. Then you truly have an intention and a direction, and that gives the world around you, that gives the universe this moment to help orient, to help that appear for you. And so I've seen so many times whenever I was like, I'm gonna need some support right now, I'm really ungrounded, or I'm going through a different time emotionally, whatever. I know that I could use some support, and getting clear on whatever area, whatever I'm needing help with, then I get super present, and then I can turn myself, my gaze, my focus back outward, and really see, okay, like, who are the people coming into my field in person around me, or what are the new practitioners or things, or what's coming up on Instagram that's really resonating with me, or social media, or what have you. And not necessarily jumping at the first thing that comes. I think that's huge too, but giving yourself some time to be present with it, and choosing, okay, this actually really resonates. This is coming up because this is what I'm looking for. And you can find such aligned people, such aligned situations that way. And the disclaimer I would say is, make sure the timing's right for you, because, working with someone, making a commitment to doing a program with someone else, it's going to be an investment of your time, and it's going to be an investment of your energy in some way, usually financially. And so it's really making sure that it's the right timing for you in that situation too, because sometimes it can be the right person, but the wrong time. So making sure it feels like what you're actually looking for, what you're wanting, and that you vibe with the person, and that it's the right time for you. I think those have been the two biggest lessons that I've learned with getting support and finding practitioners.
Yeah, I love that you brought up. I feel like the key theme here is being intentional, right? Being intentional because it is the right time for you, and recognizing, okay, this is the right time, or it's not the right time. And being intentional just in your sphere of awareness. Once you put that intention out there, just opening up your eyes, and to your point, just staying present with what is coming into your awareness. And I feel like people probably wish we could make it more tangible and be like, okay, just go to thetahealers.com and then filter by these couple of things. And it doesn't really work like that. Honestly, I think that's way more complex anyways. I remember looking for a therapist in the past on psychology.com or whatever that website is, and being this is still super overwhelming, even when you have a space like that to kind of sift through. And instead, I've always found the most aligned healers, simply from what Courtney just shared, which is, literally just putting that intention out there and just opening up your eyes and seeing what starts to come to you. And every single time I've done that, somebody has come into my awareness that has been perfect and aligned for me. Although, and I think my disclaimer would be, to make sure that you do have like a 15-minute chat or consultation with that person before signing up for a session with them, unless you already personally know them. I know I've made like a couple of mistakes before of just, paying for the session up front without ever meeting the person. And then getting to the session and realizing, ooh, like this actually like isn't really an energetic alignment. And like, you looked great on your blog, but like this actually like isn't really for me. And so I think like most healers, therapists, and coaches will offer some type of like 15-minute chat to make sure that's a good fit for them too. Because I think equally, like, I'm sure you would also agree that like, it's really important that the client is a good energetic fit for us and that we can actually support them in the way that we and they want to be supported.
Yeah, exactly. Because then the client can get, say, a bad perspective, a negative perspective of the actual modality, but could just be not an energetic match. And that's with any relationship, or any job you're working. You want it to be an energetic match.
Yeah, 100%. Anything else that you want to share before we sign off?
I just want to say it's been such a cool journey from it's coming up. It's going to be about 3 years since we started connecting, Liz and I. It was like December 2019 is when we started this journey together, and it's just been so awesome to see how it's deepened and how it's evolved of both of our understandings of health and of wellness and what this life's really about and all that's possible. And so I just feel really grateful for this connection. It's really helped me to get re-inspired when I've lost inspiration and things like that, and definitely kind of helped me keep going in moments where it's like, I don't know if there's anyone else around who gets this, but Liz has really been able to get it even from miles away, and even when we've taken like time doing our own things. So I'm just really grateful for you, Liz.
Likewise. Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like we are really, really just so in sync. And it's really cool to see how both of us have gone down these parallel paths together, like focusing on 2 different modalities that in fact happen to be really connected and really similar in a lot of ways, with again, having like such different backgrounds too. So excited to see where our journey continues to take us. And yeah, it was fun just chatting with you, Courtney, tonight, and having all of you also here with us today. So hopefully we'll do another one of these chats soon. This was super fun.
Yeah. And we've actually got like more to talk about.
Yeah, I know. We could talk for literally ever, but we'll cut it off. So anyways, thank you all for listening and much love. Have a good rest of your day.